Is now recording. The floor is yours, Alden.
Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Alden Drake from the Kingdom of Ansteora in the lovely barony of Stargate. I see in our attendees list, we have some people from out of Kingdom, so I thought I would just make a quick introduction of myself. If you've been in Ansteora, odds are you know who I am. I've been active in the College of Heralds for a good 17 of my 20 years in the SCA. Although I've taken the last 3 years off, I felt I deserved some retirement vacation time, but I've never been far from the College of Heralds. I've been a consulting herald and stand-in court herald whenever landed nobilities or the crown require my services. So the class I'm teaching this morning that you are all here for is on court heraldry. And I call the class Court Heraldry Before, During, and After, because it is important to know that all three of those time periods are important. So if you are not here for court heraldry, please check the schedule to find the location of the class you are looking for, or feel free to stay and enjoy this class. I'm happy to teach to anyone who's interested. So we begin with a question of, what is court? Court is where official business of the kingdom is conducted by the crown and or landed nobility. This business will include awards, investitures, other ceremonies, announcements, banishments are required to happen at court, and any other activities that the crown or landed nobility wish to have done in a public venue. I'm not going to get into the details of, scheduling on the calendar to have events be official so court can be conducted, but that's not so germane to the class. But court is what this class is all about. And the next question is, so we know what court is. What's the herald's role in court? So the herald's role is, I've listed 4 things. It's to organize the business of court with the crown and landed nobility. It's to MC the court proceedings. It's to make the crown and landed nobles the focal point of court. And it's to make court enjoyable for everybody. You are the one probably doing 50% of the talking because you are calling the people up and letting people know what's happening in court, reading scrolls. So you want to keep your audience engaged. It's a show, really, and you are emceeing this show. So, like you've seen hosts of the Oscars, they are emceeing the show. So that is your job. But keep in mind, you are not the show. You are there to make the show enjoyable and the show look good. So court herald may or may not be appointed positions. And I say may or may not be, and I'll explain why. So there's typically 2 levels of court heralds. There is the royal herald for the crown, which is the heraldic title for that is Golden Staff Herald. And then there are local court heralds for the typically landed nobilities, barons, baronesses, etc. Now, the local court herald may be the branch herald who has been put in office for that branch, in which case it's not an appointed position, but it is a default position to the officer. Or your landed nobles might appoint somebody to be their voice herald if, for whatever reason, maybe their local herald officer is not a voice herald. Maybe they're a book herald. So they'll have somebody on hand that they will appoint to be their court herald. But Golden Staff Herald is appointed by the crown for each and every reign. The Golden Staff Herald will be responsible for the court heraldry directly, or through volunteers as backups to the local heralds. Having been Golden Staff Herald in the past, I was responsible to make sure that court heraldry was done for the crown. If I was not able to be at an event to do it, it was still my responsibility to make sure somebody was there in my place that was approved by the crown to do it. So that's something important to know. If you aspire to that position, you are responsible to make sure heraldry happens, even if you're not there. So first and foremost, when you know you're going to be the primary court herald for crown or landed nobility, there's a few things recommended that you do. And this is covered in the before court happens category. So the first thing I suggest you do is to learn their voice. And I don't mean for mimicry, but I mean for flavor and style. If you haven't already, spend some time with them to get to know them. You're going to be their voice, so learn how to speak for them. If they are lighthearted, court should be lighthearted. If they are direct and to the point, make court short and sweet, direct to the point. Again, it's to give their flavor to the court, not your own personal flavor. Next, you want to learn their preferences. Different nobles have different preferences. Some crowns like Vivat Rex, Vivat Regina. Some crowns like Long Live the King, Long Live the Queen. Find out what those peculiarities are to that given crown. Some nobles want to give awards in ascending precedence. They'll start their awards with, their AOAs or their non-armigerous awards, and then work up to the big awards. Other crowns like to mix it up because it makes people in the audience unsure of what's coming next. So it makes it a little more exciting. Have a backup herald. And like I mentioned before, if you are not going to be at an event and you are the court herald for that reign or that B&B, you need to make sure it's covered. But don't surprise the crown with who your choice is. Get with them and discuss a list of possible alternatives for when you can't be there. Because, and I've explained this in a class before, if you have somebody on your list, the crown may not want to have them be their court herald at an event because they might have something planned for an award for that person and want it to be a surprise and don't want to loop that person in necessarily. They might also have preferences as to who they think can best reflect their voice and their preferences. So put a list together, get volunteers lined up to cover for you, and then vet that list through the crown or the B&B. That is always important to do because odds are you won't make every event. Scrolls and insignia. Discuss who will be responsible for handing out scrolls and insignia during court. And I put this in my notes because some courts don't know who's giving what, who's handing things. It's all the stuff that hands behind the thrones. Usually that's done by entourage personnel that are behind the thrones getting things ready. Sometimes they'll just put awards in the envelopes with the scrolls and hand everything to the herald. So have that discussion and find out how the crown likes it done, how it works best with the herald. I usually try to propose that entourage takes care of all of the insignias and I'll just take the scrolls because it's a lot to fumble with when you've got the big leather book on stage and you're trying to sort through those and line things up for the next to then find, where's the ribbon? Is this no, that's the wrong ribbon. That's a medallion. Have it set up behind the thrones for the entourage to discreetly pass that up. If that is what the crown or B&B's preference is. But it's what I do recommend when I'm serving as the herald. The next thing you'll want to have is a draft court script. And I'll include that in my handout at the end of the class. If you want a copy of the handout, and I suggest you get a copy, just go ahead and Zoom chat, enter your email address, and we'll compile the list, and I will email everyone the handout. and in which is a draft court script. So the draft is what you use as your template for heralding court. Most courts happen in the same progression of things, of activities, so you can kind of make yourself an outline. Typically, like the first thing you do is you open court. The crown has words, then starts, if there's a baronial court attached, the baronial or local court starts, and there's a kind of a dance that's played between two courts of the progression of how you sequence things. And I think I have the different varieties all covered in my handout. But the main thing is you need to know, make your draft as detailed or as sparse as you need it to be. If you need to write in your draft, with these words does open the court of Jason and Margarita, King and Queen of Anstiora, in this their barony of Bonwick on the whatever day, write down what you need to have. I might not need that. I've done enough courts. I know I'll just write open court, Jason and Margarita. I do recommend you write down the crown's name, because especially when it's a new crown changeover, it's easy to default into the names of the last crown because you've heard them so much. So give yourself the notes you need. And like I said, be as elaborate or as brief as you need. Then we have ceremony and award texts. On the Herald's page, there are documents that you can download to review the award texts for every award that Anstiora gives that has award text. I believe the Lion of Anstiora might not have actual award text. And familiarize yourselves with them. Also, I don't know if the ceremonies for like peerages are published on the Herald's page, but Golden Staff Herald has what's called the Book of Mo. And this is a binder that Master Modius, I believe, built that goes with the crown. It doesn't go with the Herald. The crown keeps it and brings it out to events for the Herald. And it has all of the ceremony texts in it for all the peerages and for some various other things. Oaths of fealty, coronation scripts are in there. So if you are heralding for the crown and you're heralding coronation, you need to know what order are the knights called and the other peers and the landeds to give their oaths of fealty. How does that all work? That's in the Book of Mo. And the crown may have some input into that as well. So make sure that you know this. Just because it's written down on paper doesn't guarantee that's the way the crown wants it. But it's at least a good starting point. Then your dress and decorum. How you look and behave as a court herald directly reflects on the crown and landed nobles. And I also include in my notes, don't forget comfortable shoes. You're going to be standing for a long time. Make sure you have comfortable shoes. And then prepare what I call is the Happy Herald's bag. This is your go bag that you take to every event with you. At a minimum, you'll want to have pens and pencils, a letter-sized notepad, index cards, highlighter, the Kingdom Award texts, a clip-on light source, and I kind of put that in because I've heralded courts at night outside. It's very difficult to read, but if you have a little light that you can clip on your book or something that you can keep your hands free with is really helpful. I don't recommend the headlamps looking down because that's kind of distracting, especially to your audience. Also, it's useful to have access to a copy of the Order of Precedence for your go bag, and you can have that on your phone. It's accessible through the web. They used to print out hard copy paper copies of the Order of Precedence, but it is really big and chunky and hard to sift through. The digital copy is much easier. And then look at the event schedule. Look at the calendar. Make sure you've got a list of all the events that the Crown or B&B are going to need heraldic services at. Make sure you can attend them. If you can't attend them, communicate what events you're going to have to miss and get your backup heralds lined up for that. All right. Now, I guess that's not necessarily that is all before court, but that is all kind of preliminary leading up, right? That's everything you kind of have to have in your mindset. Now I technically start the before court. So, always before court, take care of your instrument. Your voice is your instrument. Your body is your instrument. And this comes from my music background, right? Take care of your instrument. Be rested, be healthy, be hydrated, and be happy. You know, the energy you bring with you is the energy you'll project in court. So if you can, and sometimes it's hard, you've got a lot going on in your life. I understand that. I've been there. But bring your happy with you and project that to your audience. It's kind of like, you know, when cooks in the kitchen, you know, make something that comes out really great. Oh, what's your secret ingredient? Oh, my secret ingredient is love, because I put love in the food that I make for the people I care about. That's the same thing. You put in what you get out. Then we go to 1 month out before court. Confirm availability to herald with the nobles. This is when you say, all right, Your Majesties, this event is in a month. I can be there, or I cannot be there. And like I said, this is the time when you want to start, if you can't be there, start proposing who from the alternate list can be there, and make sure that they are acceptable. And I say, don't ever tell them who is going to be there in your stead. Ask if certain individuals are suitable to them, because ultimately it's their court. It's their business. They decide who heralds for them. They decided you are going to herald for them. So don't tell them, you know, oh, you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to be there. Avery will herald for you. No. You say, would Master Avery be acceptable as an alternate to herald since I cannot be there? Let them make that choice. Then you go to 1 week out. Check your Happy Herald's bag for supplies. Replace everything that is needed to be replaced. If you ran out of court report forms, tuck some more in there. Make sure you've got your stock set. If you gave out pencils at an event for some reason, put some more pencils in your bag. Also, check with your nobles to see if they can provide you with court business items. So you're 1 week ahead 1 week out from the event. Find out what their Majesties plan to do in court. This is information you need to start building your script. If they aren't ready to discuss it yet, find out from them when they would like to have that conversation with you. Make sure you get it scheduled. And it might not be until 30 minutes before court, but at least you'll have a scheduled time with the Crown. The Crown is very busy. They always have people coming up to them with business and things going on. And a lot of times what you need isn't a priority in their mind. So you have to keep it a priority and make sure it stays in their window. Confirm with their Majesties or the B&Bs if there's morning court, evening court, or both, because you'll need to know the business for each, and you'll need to make draft court scripts for each. So that's something you'll need to know. Some courts, they'll say, oh, it's this event. Well, we won't do a morning court. We'll just do an evening court. Or yes, we'll do both. Or we're going to do the knighting ceremony in morning court so that person can fight all day as a knight. Or we'll do this other thing. So know what their plans are for how many courts they're going to have. And if it's a multi-day event, you'll need to know if they're going to do a court on Sunday or Friday night. You know. So these are things that you find out about a week out is good. Then what you can do is announce on social media a week out that anyone with business in their court should come and speak with you to get on the tentative agenda. What you'll do is anyone that has business before their Majesties in court, you'll make that list, and then you will take that list to their Majesties, get their name, and find out what they want business for. And then you'll take that list to the Crown and kind of vet that with them so they can decide, yes, we'll do that in court. Yes, we'll do that in court. No, we'll do that one during feast. They just want to make a presentation. It can be done in feast. Let them decide, because it's their business, right? It's not your business. So make sure that they tell you when and where they want to do their business, in court or out of court. And then once you know, revert back to the person that asked for Their Majesty's time. Say, the Barony of Steps has a presentation they want to give, and say His Grace Mahadi came up to me to let me know this and ask about it. I then find out from Their Majesties. I go back to His Grace Mahadi and say, Your Grace, Their Majesties, I've asked Their Majesties about your request. They would like to do your presentation during feast because they're trying to keep court short. That is Their Majesty's will, and that should be acceptable. I've never had anybody come back and say, but I really want to do it in court. No, most people will understand if you give them that reason. And it's also a courtesy to them. If they come and say, I'd like some of Their Majesty's time, and then all of court happens and they don't get called up, how they're not going to feel great about that. So it's a courtesy to let them know what Their Majesties have decided. Then I call less than a week out, you're going to prepare your court scripts with the business provided, as much as you have. You're going to send a copy of that court script to your nobles or to the crown to let them review it and make any changes they might want to make. And then if you have the business of what awards are going to be given ahead of time, and I really like having that as the court herald, pre-fill out your court report form. You have Their Majesty's list of awards, get a court report form, because you are responsible for submitting the court report form that is signed by the crown, right? As their herald, that is your job. So pre-fill it out. Go online, get the correct spelling of their names, write legibly, you've got the time. Because on the court report form, there's a selection of not given or not present at court. So you can just check that off if they're not there. It means that award either was not given, or it was read but not given, which means that Zodiacus won't enter it into the OP yet, though it has been read into law or it made official in court. So that's something you can do with that information. It also gives you an opportunity to look at the OP for those people to make sure that they haven't already received the award. I've seen many times where somebody will recommend somebody for a sable crane, and I'll look in the OP, I'll say, Your Majesty, that person was given a crane 2 years ago. Maybe you want to give them a Star of Merit. Let the crown decide that. But do let them know that that award was already done. Because some people, when they write award recommendations, don't look at the OP to find out what they have. Some crowns don't look at the OP when they're given the award recommendations. So you are kind of the last bastion of OP review. Now, the day before court, have everything ready in your Happy Herald's bag. Have it set with your event supplies ready to go. Check the schedule, the event schedule for court times. Make sure that they're published so people know when they're going to be there, and so you know when you have to be there. If there's a morning court, be there well in advance of morning court. If there's not a morning court, get to the event whenever you want to get to the event, but make sure you're there for the evening court. It's kind of when you need to know when to set your alarm, right? And then also the day before, I say be prepared to make last minute changes. And that is both figuratively and literally. Changes may come at the very last minute. Somebody can't be at an event. Well, we're not going to do this award, or this came in. We now have a banishment that needs to be read in court, so the Kingdom Seneschal is going to need time. Add that to your schedule. Also, and I say figuratively because keep your mindset flexible. Understand that day of, that the next day, we're the day before, right? So start preparing your instrument, which includes your mindset. Be ready to be flexible. Things may happen at the event that cause things in court to change, and that's okay. And it might happen in court. The very first court I held the very first court I heralded was for Their Excellency Stargate, Godwin, and Lissa. And it was my first time ever heralding court, and I had my script, and I'm going to follow my script, and this is everything that is in court is on my script. And Her Excellency turns and looks at me and says, "Please call up the Longship Company." They're not on my script. "Of course, Your Excellency." And I called up the Longship Company. Not a deal breaker, not a stressor, not an impact. Just go with the flow. Then you get to the day of the event. As soon as you can, check in with the nobles to let them know you're there. It is a relief to them. It is a relief to you. You've checked in. If there's any communication that needs to happen at that point, it'll happen. But Their Majesties, even if it's in one ear and out the other, a relief to Their Majesties or the B&Bs will happen because they'll know you're there. And then set a time to meet with them to discuss court business. I try to usually aim for about an hour before court, 30 minutes before court, can be pushing it. So be flexible, but make sure you are on Their Majesty's schedule. And confirm it with their head of entourage as well, because their head of entourage is kind of their people wrangler. Right? They get them where they need to be at the times they need to be there. If you are heralding for Their Majesties at a baronial court where there's going to be a baronial, or at a baronial event where there's going to be a baronial court in addition to the royal court, it's really great for that meeting to happen with everybody. The Crown, the B&Bs, their herald, you. It's best to get all that communication lined up together because that's when Their Majesties and the B&Bs will say, well, we've got these AOA level awards. We're going to let you give them out in the baronial court. Like, okay, well then I can take those off my schedule and that'll be on the baronial schedule. So that's really a key meeting to have happen. Now, 1 hour before court, and you see how I'm doing this? We're getting closer and closer to showtime. 1 hour before, heralds meet with the Crown and landed nobles, like I mentioned, confirm what is Crown business and what is landed nobles business, confirm names of people being called into court and why they're being called into court. It's kind of good to know sometimes if you're the herald, like, well, all right, John Smith is being called into court. Well, why? What is this business? Just so you are prepared if you need a scroll or a war insignia or something. Add and remove anything the Crowns or landed nobles desire. This is their show. You are just the organizer and the MC. So you don't decide what goes in and goes out. That's for them to decide. Suggest improvements in helping keeping time. I find this is important because court has a flow. And if Their Majesties say, we want court to be quick, my job then is to condense court as much as I can, but confirm it with Their Majesties. So, for example, if Their Majesties say, we want court to be quick, I'm like, very good, Your Majesty. We have 5 AOAs being given out in this court. Do you want to call them all up at once and give them all at once? Or do you want to call them up individually? Individually slower, but a lot of Crowns will view the AOA as the most important award given in court because it's the person's first time getting called into court. And they want that to be special for the person. So they'll say, no, Alden, do them one at a time. Maybe do the Sable Cranes all together. Let them make that call, but find out ways to abbreviate court. Any presentations or announcements, that can be done in Feast. Let those be done in Feast. Find out from Their Majesties or B&Bs if they're processing or not. That is important because as the herald, you will be the voice of the procession coming into court. If they are processing, you will want to pace the procession way, which means take what you're going to say to open court and walk the length of the hall that they will be processing so you can get your timing right. So as Their Majesties get to the thrones, you can say, pray heed their words. Boom, transition to the Crown. They can speak and address their court. They're not waiting for you to finish standing there, like bumps on a log. Again, it's a timing thing. Make sure it progresses. Set out the herald's tabard and book and any materials you need for court behind the thrones so they are ready. Get a bite to eat and grab a drink. You don't necessarily know how long you're going to be up in court. Make sure you have a drink behind court ready for you to have water. Get a bite to eat. Keep your blood sugar up. Again, take care of your instrument. Once you know the names of people being called into court, learn how to pronounce them. And this you can do as early as you need to, from when you get the list of awards being given to, an hour before court. There are a lot of names that are difficult to pronounce. So it's very nice for those people to hear their name pronounced correctly. But I don't recommend going to the person and say, "How do you pronounce your name?" That clues them in to why does the court herald need to know how to pronounce my name unless I'm being called into court. And something else I'm going to add, this isn't in my notes, but it is something I'm going to add to them soon. If you know the people are being called into court have maybe social anxiety or other accessibility issues, concerns, what have you, let their majesties know. If, for example, I have social anxiety, I don't want the attention on me, please don't call me into court ever. Let their majesties know that, so they can make other arrangements to recognize that person. They may open up a side court during the event with that person privately. But again, we want to make court enjoyable for everyone as much as we can. And accessibility and sensitivity is something I'm really trying to promote as a court herald. Now, 15 minutes before court. Announce that court will begin in 15 minutes. That may seem obvious. It should. You need to let people know, all right, start setting up your chairs in front of the thrones because court's going to start soon. Again, make sure you have water. Make sure you have all your necessary texts. You've got the awards. You've got the setup behind the thrones with your tabard and book and all that's good to go. Somebody didn't move it on you. I've had people move it on me because they needed room to set stuff on the table. Then 5 minutes before court, make a final announcement that court is imminent. You can say, I'll draw an eye, and everyone will laugh. What's an eye? But make sure court is imminent. Means sit your butts in your chairs. We're going to get started. 0 minutes before court, confirm with the crown that they're ready to start. Don't just assume it's 10 o'clock. Let's start court with these words. Look at your nobles or your crown and say, with your permission, are you ready to start court? And they say, yes, Alden, we're ready. Or no, give us 5 more minutes. Let the populace know. Court will begin shortly. Maybe find a bard, find the premier bard. Say, Lord Robin Carrot, would you please perform for their majesty's pleasure prior to opening court? I am also a bard. I am very happy to be pimped out by the crown's herald to say, hey, stretch. We need 10 minutes, Alden, stretch. Very well. Modius did this to me. Let me give you the longest song I know. It's 10 minutes long.
That was my fault, Alden. Sorry.
Not a problem. But it happens. And Master Brian is a bard as well. And a lot of people think that they don't want to impose on bards. And meanwhile, most of the bards are like, no, please, we want to perform. We are performers. This is our jam. It's a venue. Throw us in there. Now, during court, consider your location of where the court is, or consider your location. Are you standing next to on the king's side? Are you on the queen's side? Are you in between them? Know where you're going to be and where the landed nobles are going to be if they're there, because you will need to communicate with them. If there's a lot of decorations and frou and 28 champions standing around the thrones, we love our champions. But as the voice of the crown, you are more important. Get next to the crown. You need to be able to have private words with the crown to let them know, what's next on the docket, or confirm things with them. They need to confirm with you. You need to be near them. Now, it's a public speaking job. So again, your voice should be loud and clear without yelling. Match your voice to suit the environment. Are you outside and need to project further? Are you in a closed hall? You don't need to blast people in a small closed hall. Don't do that to your voice. Don't do that to their ears. Is the hall a sound suck? Do you need to be as loud as you can without yelling, and then maybe have another herald stationed towards the back who can hear you, that can then relay your message on? I've been in halls that the acoustics are terrible, and no matter how loud I was, people in the back could not hear me. You might also consider walking forward of the crown into the house a little bit to be heard, to do your announcement, your speaking. You will set the pace for court. Most crowns and B&Bs will be like, keep it moving, keep it moving. That's always been a thing. So let's take just a quick couple minutes and say, and let me ask you, how are ways you think you can keep court moving? Does anybody want to raise a hand or have an idea? Have I covered it all?
Well, one way you can keep it moving is to have the next thing out and ready while the current person that's getting an award is up there with the nobles.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. Have your like 2 or 3 deep ready to go, so you can just keep cycling through. That was what I was thinking as well. That left for Brian. You're experienced heralds. Do you have any? All right. Well, that is my one big suggestion as well, Thomas. So that was a good one. Again, during court, let's talk about the show. The show is the crown and landed nobles and the people that they have come into court. The herald is not the show. You are there speaking with the crown's voice. You are a part of the package, but your job is to make court enjoyable and look good, and make the crown look good and be heard. Being watched. So this is something that some people usually know. Sometimes they forget and slip. While you are on stage, while you are not the show, you are always being watched by someone somewhere. So you need to make sure that when you are in court heralding, that you are on. You are in persona, you are in the role. Be attentive to what's going on. Don't forget and pick your nose or your butt or whatever. If you need to take care of something necessary, step back behind the thrones to do it, even if that means getting a drink to rehydrate, or have somebody there with your mug, a stunt herald behind you to hand you your mug. Step back. So it's not out front, oh, look, this is the part where Alden takes a drink. No, that's not part of the show. Follow your script. You wrote your script for a reason. You have it there as a tool. And as I mentioned, make it as detailed or as brief as you need it to make sure you do a good job. Nobody expects you to memorize all the award texts, though you'll do the job enough times, you'll probably have a pretty good handle on most of them. And again, make sure that the crown has approved your script. And again, as I mentioned, expect the unexpected. Things will come up. A lion might interrupt court. That is their prerogative and privilege. Make sure you stick to your script, but also leave room to go with the flow a little bit. Background noise. This is unfortunately a problem that we have in a lot of courts. People get bored. People are there to chat with their friends. They're not necessarily paying attention to what's going on in court. And over time, that volume starts creeping up. I put in my notes, are the natives getting restless? Part of that is because people just don't care. But part of that is also might be because the show is boring. And you need to step it up, make it not boring, keep people engaged. This might not even be you. It's there. I say boring. It's just their take on court. For example, if somebody gets called up and the crown is speaking to the person getting an award, but they're just speaking to that person and the hall can't hear them, they don't know what's going on. And if this happens a few times, you might, as the herald, tell people their majesties are having words with John Smith, who is receiving sable thistle for brewing in recognition of the efforts he did this day on winning the championship, blah, blah, blah. Keep people engaged. Otherwise, they're going to drift. And then you'll have, somebody, a lion usually, stepping up and berating the hall for their lack of courtesy to the crown in court. And on one hand, I'm glad, that they will step up and do that. If, as the herald, I don't do that, because there are times when I've said, Your Majesty, let me take a moment to, settle the hall. And but lions have done that. But it's also just, it's hard as the herald because you want to have everyone's attention. You don't want people to drift, and you feel like I've let it go. I need to get it back. So just be aware. Background noise happens. Smile. Like I said, in preparing your instrument, be happy. Project confidence and enjoyment. Smiling conveys good energy, happiness, confidence. Kind of like a duck. You're the duck on the water. You're frantically paddling below, but nobody can see it. All they see is what's on top. And the keep your energy up is another good point for happening in court. From start to finish, be energetic and positive. It might be a 4-hour court, but you've got to make it the whole way. When your energy when you open court, with these words does open the court of, to the energy of the 15th award of arms being given in court, the right and dignity of arms, to the energy for the last 2 words spoken in court, vivat ansteora. That all needs to have the same energy and commitment. And if you can't keep that energy up the whole time, it is okay to have a stunt herald back you up. It is actually, I think, a really good practice to have a newer herald come in periodically through court to read some awards, give them some on-the-job training. I don't have anything to prove or learn in doing court anymore. I love doing it, but I'm even more thrilled if I know if the crown comes into a shire and they have a local herald who's never had a chance to herald court. They don't have a B&B. They may never get a chance to herald court. I'll say, hey, why don't you come herald court with me? You can be my stunt herald, and you can help me read award texts. It lets you take a little break and rest your voice, get a drink, let them get experience. It's really a win-win. So I do recommend taking advantage of that. Then after court, the first thing you should do after court is get your court report signed. This is a function as your role as the court herald. So keep that tabard on and get it done. Crowds will typically flock to talk to the crown after court is over, but you are with that tabard on, you are still speaking with their name. You are doing their business. So politely get their attention, get to them through the crowd if you need to, and get that court report signed. It doesn't have to be the crown. It just has to be a presiding noble of court. If the crown's really busy in something important and there was a baronial court, have the B&B sign off on it as that we're sitting court. You can't go out into the hall and say, hey, you're a court baron. Can you sign this court? No, it's got to be a presiding noble of court. Then once you've done that, ask for their, and I go to the crown because this next step I think is important. Ask for their leave. When the court report is signed and all the business is done, You can take the tabard off at this point, put everything away, and then ask the crown or nobles for their leave to depart. It's polite. It confirms and certifies that there is no additional business to be done, and you then know and they know that you are released from that duty. Because if you don't do that and you wander off and the crown said, oh, we wanted to have this other thing done, let's open a side court, you're gone, right? They didn't know you left. Or you didn't know that there was something else that they wanted to do after court. Or they might have a task for you, that is court related. So ask their leave. The tabard and book, again, those travel with the crown or the landed nobles typically. Fold them up nicely, put them back in the herald's box. There's a big plastic tub that goes with the crown, in which is also the Book of Mo, so you want to know where that is. And put all that away. Then after court, typically when you get home, I call it Court Report Part 2. Submit the court report to Zodiacus Herald and Sable Scroll, and file a copy in your own files, right? Because Zodiacus needs it to put up the info in the order of precedence. Sable Scroll needs to know what awards were given so they know what charters they need to backfill. And you should have a copy as well, because somebody might come up to you and say, hey, Alden, I was at this event, but I didn't hear who got this award. Do you know? I said, well, sure, let me pull out the court report and I can look at it. Then, Court Report Part 3. Confirm that Zodiacus and Sable Scroll have received the copies you've emailed to them. Things can get lost in email, go to spam, go to junk, disappear into the ether. Confirm that they got it. I think you have, 2 weeks in which to submit a court report from the time the event happens. So certainly before that 2 weeks time has expired, get in touch with them and confirm. Court Report Part 4. And I put in my notes, do you get it? These are important. Check to see that the event court report is updated on the Kingdom Order of Precedence. Once it's there and agrees with your copy, because you kept a copy, then you're done. Everything's been inputted, updated correctly, it's recorded. At that point, you are done heralding court. So there's important things before court, there's important things after court. Obviously court, the during is when you're busiest, but you have to prepare and you have to follow through. If you do all of those things and do them well and comport yourself in a way that pleases the crown or the landed nobility, they will quite often and happily invite you to herald for them again. And that's heralding court is one of my favorite jobs. I love doing it. So now I think what I will try to, we've got about 10 minutes left. So what I will do now, let's see if I can, is, let's see. Astrid, can I share my screen?
I believe so. Let me see if I can get the share. Yeah, you should be able to share screen. I don't have it marked as enabled.
It says I'm getting a host disabled participant screen sharing.
Let me see. Okay, I've made you the host, so now you should be able to share your screen.
Yes, I can. All right, so you should be seeing a page that I have in a PDF. This is from my handout where it says Court Outline Examples. Can everybody see that okay? Mm-hmm. All right, perfect. So on the left side is just a rough court outline where there's crown or landed nobles present only. So one or the other. Basically, the herald opens court, the crown or landeds have words, you do the business, the crown or nobles have final words, and you close court. 5 simple steps. To the right side is where you have a crown and landed nobles. And it gets a little more complicated when you have multiple landed nobles. For example, in the southern region, there is the what they call Grand Baronial, which is often the baronies of Lochsolier and Stargate and Border March. And at one time, I think we had 4 with Ravensfort joining an event. So you need to know which baronies open their court in what order. But it is not uncommon to have a crown and landed nobles. The barony of Elfsea at an event, the crown is there. Their Excellencies Elfsea are there. They both have courts. So you follow this kind of outline. So where the Crown's Herald opens Royal Court, the Crown speaks, they have words. The Baronial Herald opens Baronial Court, the Baron and Baronesses speak. Then they will do all the baronial business. Then they will kick it back to do all the Crown business. Then the B&Bs will have any final words. They will close their court. The Crown will have any final words. The Crown's Herald will close that court. And this is kind of important to understand because all of the baronial business happens within the framework of their Majesty's court, right? So you open with their Majesties and you close with their Majesties. Everything else is part of their Majesty's court. Their Majesties basically give their landed nobles leave to have business in their court. So then you go on to developing your script. And I just took, the first simple outline. I said, Herald opens court. And then I left a blank space here. Write how you open court. With these words does open the court of their Excellencies Brenna and Sarah, Baroness and Baroness of the Barony of Stargate. On this their day of blah, blah, blah. Pray heed their words. And this you don't really need to fill in. The B&B have words. Just write words. It's not your note. Don't worry about it. And oftentimes I will put an asterisk in my notes of this is what I need to do. This is what I don't need to do, but it's being done, right? Somebody needs to do it. And this is where they do it in my script. Then you fill out the court business. You fill out, talk to their Excellencies. Sarah, your Excellencies, do you want to give out newcomer tokens, awards, announcements, call up your champions, call up your autocrats? That's where all of this stuff has to happen. And you'll have that meeting with them to discuss the order that they want to do them and or not do them, as well as being able to kind of remind yourself of what all needs to happen. And look at courts you've been to. We've all been to dozens of courts, if not hundreds of courts. And we know kind of the flavor, if we've been paying attention, of the way things need to go. Then you will have, B&B final words. And again, this isn't for me to do, but I need to know this is where it happens. I may need to prompt their Excellencies, your Excellencies final words. It happens now. And then they will speak. And then you will close court. So we get to step 2, note the business items, newcomers, event steward. There's your draft sequence. Then you will populate the items, right? With these words, does open the court of their sable-winged Excellencies. Heed their words. Words. Right there, words. Then go to newcomers. And if you need to in your script, I don't think I did it here. No, I didn't write it in the script. But so look under awards here. You've got an AOA, a golden bridle, a comet, a thistle. In Onsteora, and I'm elaborating on this because we have some attendees in this class who are from out of kingdom. In Onsteora, we have a pretty codified response for Vivat to the awards we give out. Astrid, do you have a question?
5-minute warning.
Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. So in Onsteora, an armigerous or a non-armigerous award will get 1 Vivat. So AOAs, sable thistles, sable cranes, sable comets, golden bridles, those will get 1 Vivat. Grant level awards, Star of Merit, Iris of Merit, Blade of Merit, White Scarf. Well, White Scarf's gone. I need to learn this one. Brian, maybe you can tell me. Are White Scarves still getting 2 Vivats? Because they went from being a grant order to now a non-armigerous order.
Well, the way I did it was with 2 Vivots because I'm a white scarf and that's what I think of it. So there.
And absolutely, and see, and that's why you ask the question to and ask their Majesty, Your Majesty, do you want to give white scarves 1 or 2? Historically, it's always been 2 because they were a grant level award.
And now it's weird.
Now it's weird. They made it weird. Thanks, Brian. You made it weird. Peerages will get 3 Vivots. If you are heralding for a coronation, I believe crown prince and princesses, when they are made on the field, get 4 Vivots. And I recall a time when coronation of king and queen got 4, but I think they've bumped that to 5 now, I've heard. So, and that's the most. So I don't write them in my script, but you might want to, is what I'm getting to. If this person's getting an AOA, write 1 Vivat. Somebody's getting a Blade of Merit, 2 Vivats. So you have that reminder, because I've seen a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it too. Herald will, call the person up, they'll read the award, they'll give the award, blah, 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 yay! And the herald goes to the next thing. And they say, you didn't Vivat the person. That's kind of what ends that award, is the Vivats. So you write that little note in there to remind yourself to do it and how many Vivats to give. And then the herald closes court. Again, be as elaborate or as brief as you need to be. Here I've written the whole thing out. And this is kind of a good thing. I will always typically write this in my close. I'll write Vivat Baron, Vivat Baroness. I write the order and everything we need, because you might have Vivat Baron, Vivat Baroness, Vivat Ravensfort, Vivat Prince, Vivat Principessa, Vivat Rex, Vivat Regina, Vivat Anstior. And you need to know what order they go in and not to leave any out. So I will often write that, even though I know, and I've done it how many times, I write so I don't forget it. And here's kind of the breakdown, as I mentioned, of the Vivats you give. Quite commonly in Ostiora, we'll also give huzzas for things that are not awards. If a group comes up and gives a presentation, they present a gifts of largesse to the crown, for the generosity of the Clothiers Guild of the Barony of Wearsitz, huzzah! We recognize them, we thank them. Also, if you are heralding for landed nobility, I love this. This is one of my favorite things. Landed nobles should never summon, command, or order viscounties, counties, or duchies into their court. Those noble titles all have precedence over landed nobles. So it is recommended that they are invited into their excellency's courts. Not so much.
Minute warning.
Thank you. Not a problem when you're heralding for the crown, because a crown can command anybody but another crown. And I haven't had a situation yet where I've invited another crown into court that I can remember. I might have done it once. So that is it for my class. We actually made it through everything timely. Were there any questions before we close it out?
If you could pass the host ownership over back to me, Alden, I would appreciate it.
Yep, we'll do that right now.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you all for attending. This will now end the recording.
Thank you, everybody.